If I was starting a SaaS business in 2025, this is what I'd do. I often hear from founders who talk about how all the good opportunities in SaaS are gone and there's no longer any good ideas left. I just don't buy this. People have been saying this for years, actually, and still today, hundreds of new SaaS businesses are getting launched, I think, almost every day. And occasionally, some of those businesses break out and become really successful. And I started ChartMogul just over 10 years ago, and obviously things were different back then, but nevertheless, we managed to build a decent-sized business, and I still believe that SaaS is the very best business model that founders should really consider when they're going to start their startups. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the lessons I've learned and what I would do if I was starting a SaaS business today from scratch. And by the end of the video, you'll have learned some of those lessons that I wish I had had 10 years ago when I was just starting out. The first thing you need when starting a SaaS company is a product idea. SaaS businesses are essentially software product companies. At the core, where you need to start as a founder is with the product idea. Products exist to solve common customer problems. If there's a customer problem that's only really experienced by one or two people or one or two businesses, then probably a custom solution is what's required and not really a full-on product. If there's a customer problem that's experienced by a lot of customers, that's where you can build a product, hopefully, to address those needs. And hopefully there isn't a lot of competition there. If you don't yet have a product idea, here are some ways to look for one. One obvious way is to look for some existing successful SaaS companies where there's some problem with the current solution. Maybe the product isn't very good, the user experience is bad, maybe the price is too high. That is sort of your opportunity then to say, I can build a better product or provide a better service at a better price in this market. One of the biggest successes in SaaS the last few years has been Notion, right? Notion came out of nowhere. Before Notion, there was tools like Confluence from Atlassian, but they didn't quite have good user experience. It wasn't fun to write up documentation or to read documentation. And Notion came out with a really nice solution, incredible UI, good price, and they built a great business in an underserved part of the market. I've been using a product called Supercut. And Supercut's basically a screen recording app from the creators of Typeform. It's basically a Loom competitor, and Loom isn't really an old product. It's still a really great product, a great business. These guys found a way to make a new and innovative approach on screen recording. What they did with Typeform actually in the past is kind of similar to that. They found a product category, forms, that they felt, wasn't particularly well served. Forms were boring. They built a really innovative version of that with Typeform. That's another way to do it. Another place to search for opportunities is to kind of look for companies that maybe don't have great service or aren't treating their customers particularly well. Companies that are heavily funded. When growth stalls, those companies come under a lot of pressure to kind of keep growth going. And one of the ways they can do that is by raising prices. That does create animosity among their customer base and an opportunity for a company to come in without that and come in with a new price point. So find a heavily funded business and sort of build the bootstrapped version of that. A bit less features, less enterprise, better service, more friendly, lower price, and that's a way to enter the market as well. Another area of opportunity in SaaS is AI, and there are still opportunities to sort of reimagine SaaS products from the ground up using these new LLM and these new AI technologies. Think of a successful SaaS like Calendly. What would Calendly look like if you just rebuilt it today as like an AI agent that coordinated with the people that need to be in the meeting to organize the meeting versus a UI-based approach? There are definitely ways in which you can reimagine certain existing SaaS products using AI. I also believe that vertical and regional SaaS still hasn't really fully run its course yet. There's still opportunities, and we still see it at ChartMogul with new customers signing up to create a SaaS that is specialized to a specific industry or a specific region or language. And we see that all the time. So if you have, specialist knowledge in a specific industry, or maybe a partner or a family member in a specific industry, that's a great, advantage and a way to launch a SaaS company, or in a specific geography. And sometimes both, like, SaaS for doctors in Germany. So SaaS hasn't fully yet penetrated all different industries and markets where it can actually bring benefits to the customers. So there's still opportunity in vertical SaaS as well. So the learnings here are, if you're great at product design and product development, there's definitely lots of opportunities left in SaaS to reimagine existing SaaS, to evolve existing or new type of SaaS. There's definitely opportunities out there. If you're less good at product design, there's definitely less opportunities open to you. Perhaps having some kind of expert knowledge or advantage in specific industry or even a specific country or location might be a way to enter a market. So regardless of the product idea, there's a couple of ways I like to sort of examine or look at a SaaS business or an idea for a SaaS product. And the first is around whether or not the SaaS product is going to be, creating a new category or creating a new take on an existing category. It's always interesting to look at it through that lens as well. So with ChartMogul, our initial product, SaaS Metrics Subscription Analytics, that was kind of creating a new category. Before ChartMogul and our competitors, people were doing that using Excel or traditional BI. And with our second product, which is CRM, we're basically creating a new take, an evolution of an existing category, CRM, that's been around for a long time. We've kind of seen it from both angles. There are definitely pros and cons to doing both. I think launching something new in an existing category, you definitely know more about what you're getting into. It's probably a little bit lower risk, but then there's a lot more competition. If you're launching a new category of product that doesn't exist before, there is a chance that nobody really needs it and, it could just go nowhere. So would I raise VC money, VC investment for a SaaS business in 2025. Traditional VC is really for a very specific type of hyper-growth business, shooting for the moon, trying to build $1 billion business that's going to have a huge exit, acquisition, or IPO. The VC industry and the startup industry definitely forgot all that about 4 or 5 years ago. Almost every single SaaS company that you could think of was getting funded. But we've now returned back down to reality. The majority of SaaS businesses don't get funded and shouldn't get funded by venture capital because they're effectively building solid software businesses, but not necessarily huge billion-dollar global businesses. If you are shooting for the moon, unicorn or bust, then definitely VC is something you should consider. You just need to be very confident in your conviction that you can build a very large market for your business, for your product, and you need to be confident that you can actually, once you've got all this tens of millions of dollars in investment, you can actually deploy that capital to grow your business, and that's going to be the limiting factor to unlock more and more growth over time. Now I want to talk about something that, when you don't get it right, can be a really slow killer of many startup businesses, many SaaS businesses, and that thing is product development velocity or rate of innovation and having a constant momentum in product development. Your customers are going to expect that product they're paying for is going to get better and better, providing them more and more value month over month, year over year. If you're not able to kind of keep up with that market expectation, your customers are going to be getting, feature envy from looking at your competitors. Rate of innovation, rate of product development, super essential. A few things I found useful in terms of helping to maintain that high pace of innovation. The first is trying to invest time in simplifying and modularizing your code base. Design and build a clean architecture that's future-proof. The architecture should allow your various product development engineering teams to basically work in sort of swim lanes. So one product development team should be able to make progress independently of the other teams. The other thing to do is obviously to make sure you're always just raising the bar in your product and engineering team. So that means, always trying to hire the best talent you can get and to promote your really high performers. It also means that you also have to make those tough decisions to let go of those low performers. I want to briefly mention marketing. A lot of SaaS businesses, especially sort of the product-led SaaS businesses or the self-service SaaS businesses, they tend to fall into this trap where the vast majority of their customers are coming from word of mouth or some SEM, Google ad spend. And it's pretty hard to go beyond that. It's a big lift for a lot of companies to really get good at marketing. Word of mouth isn't really marketing. If you can get really good at marketing, it can make the difference between just being a good business and a great business. But the reality is, to build a great business, you have to be good at all of it. You can't just be good at product-led growth. You have to be good at product-led and marketing-led and sales-led. You have to be good at everything. So I'm a big believer in having small, highly competent, highly creative, highly intelligent marketing teams. I think marketing is one of the most, if not the most high leverage role you can get. If you think of a company like Dollar Shave Club, they had that one viral video they made in their warehouse. It probably didn't cost that much money to make that viral video in their warehouse. That video generated them so much business, right? That's just an example of how high leverage marketing can be if it's actually done well and it's creative and interesting and innovative. One company can spend $10,000 on marketing and basically get zero back for that $10,000 spent. And another company could spend $500 or nothing and have a huge return, because a lot of it's about the power of how good the ideas are, how creative are they, how engaging are they. I think that's where marketing can be incredibly powerful. If you don't just kind of follow what everyone else is doing, but you really think deeply about what could we do that has a chance of going viral. A good example like Slidebean. Slidebean's a SaaS company, but their YouTube channel has hundreds of thousands of followers. They create incredibly engaging content. They were doing YouTube way before we were, way before anyone else was doing YouTube. What you need to do to survive and thrive as a business is to create bold, memorable, creative content. So the next topic I want to talk briefly about is hiring. It's definitely a cliche for founders and CEOs to say, oh, well, the people is the most important thing, or team and hiring, but it's definitely true. The sooner you start that process and get good at hiring and getting good at building good teams, the better you'll do as a business. How do you do that? I have my list is kind of like prioritize competence and, raw intelligence and attitude and things like that. But competence is sort of like oxygen for a startup. Every single person to be sort of hardworking, great attitude, really competent, and really wants to build and ship stuff. You got to get good at being able to identify who is going to be really good at building. One other thing is like we always try and hire people that we'd be happy to work with for the next 10 years. It takes a long time to build a great business. So you want to find people that are really strong, are fun to work with. One place where VCs can help is in the early days when your own company doesn't have much credibility. If you do raise VC from a good brand name, like we did in the very early days, we raised from Point Nine Capital. And that really helped with our first few hires in Berlin because they had a better brand and a more well-known than us at that point, and probably still are. Another learning is that if your product is really complicated, like ChartMogul is a fairly complex product and we're often selling to quite technical buyers, then you want to make sure everyone you hire is technical as well, like your customer service people, your marketing people, and your sales people. We found out the hard way that you really do need to be quite technical in order to sell ChartMogul, support ChartMogul, and market ChartMogul. You can't necessarily necessarily hire people from a traditional, maybe marketing background if they don't have the technical ability to understand the product on a deep level as well. It's hard to market it. Working with a high-performing team, it just makes everything easier and more enjoyable. The next topic, the touchy subject, which is about firing, and it's obviously something that everybody hates doing, but it is really necessary sometimes. You got to be tough to have those conversations, but the decision can be quite clear. What's harder is when someone's just kind of not quite delivering what you'd hope they'd deliver, but they're a good person, they're trying their best maybe, but they're just a low performer. That's when the decision becomes kind of hard. But generally speaking, you have to kind of treat your team a bit like a sports team, and you as the captain, as the coach, your job is to field the A team, the best players, to have the best chance of your company having success. Everyone's not going to perform the same way, but if there is someone that's performing significantly below the level of everybody else, then you eventually have to make a change. And that's where you have to have those conversations. One thing to drive home this point is, every dollar that you spend on the salary of a mediocre or low performer, the same dollar could be spent on a high performer. And a really high performer can be game-changing to a small startup. I've definitely noticed that the really successful founders I see, they make the decision sooner and they have those tough conversations sooner. They just don't tolerate mediocrity on their team. One topic I want to touch on just briefly is around the personal journey and self-care, which is something that recently it's getting talked about more and more, but in the past didn't get as much attention as it needs. Being a founder, it's sometimes a pretty lonely journey, especially if you're a solo founder, which a lot of people are, myself included. You cannot take care of your business and you cannot take care of your team if you're not really taking care of yourself. And that means all aspects of your life. So your health, your personal life, your mental health, your physical life, your family life. You need to take care of all aspects of your life that you can then have the energy to take care of your business. So you got to find a balance somehow. I don't believe the work-life balance means that you assign a certain number of hours to work and a certain number of hours to life. I think for a lot of founders, me included, work and life, they're one and the same. They kind of bleed into each other. Most founders I know, they're always working, but at the same time, they're always living. Work and life, it's one and the same. So you have to find a way to just sort of integrate that, stay sane, as well enjoy the ride. The last point I want to make is just about how important it is to take the long-term perspective. It takes a long time to build a SaaS business or any business. Anything of real value takes a long time. It's taken ChartMogul 10 years to build what we've built today. I think, we've built a really solid business, but it'll probably take us another 10 years to build a really, really great global business. And there's definitely always opportunities and temptation to take kind of shortcuts and not to think long term. It's usually always better to take the kind of long-term perspective when you take decisions because, shortcuts, they pile up and it's like a debt that weighs you down and eventually you can't make any progress. That's very obvious in the world of engineering, but it can affect other areas, other departments outside of engineering as well. Definitely better to think very long term, build a company, make decisions knowing that you're going to have to live with these decisions in 10 years time because you're still going to be running the business in 10 years time. But that goes down to hiring, it goes down to architecture decisions, technology decisions, product decisions. And so I think it's always good to force yourself to think long term and it leads to a happier life if you do that. Now in this video, I wanted to just give a kind of general overview of the things that I wish I had known when I was starting out 10 years ago without going into way too much detail on any specific topic. But there is one topic that is just hyper important to starting any SaaS business, which is how do you get your first 10, your first 50, your first 100 customers through the door? And that is something that is very worth going deep on. If you click here, this next video, we go super deep on the subject of exactly what you need to do to get your first 100 customers through the door so you can start properly growing your SaaS business and eventually scale to having millions of dollars in recurring revenue. Thanks a lot.